Hi, I'm Rex. I have a media consulting agency called Kinda Sorta Media, and that name is suggestive of the kind of things we do, which is stuff that is sort of media and sometimes is media and exists in spaces between media and advertising, media and social media. My background is running large media companies.
Hi, I'm Melissa Rosenthal. I'm the Vice President of Creative Services at BuzzFeed. Started 5 years ago and helped create the company's first native ads. We, as a company, believe that advertising should be a part of the flow and a part of the stream and actually tell compelling stories rather than be a tax on great content, because it is great content and it can be. And yeah, now we work with Fortune 500 companies, hundreds of them, to create compelling branded programs that reach on-site, off-site video, and through distributed content on Instagram. Always thinking about what's next in tech.
Hello, good afternoon. So I'm Mike Street. I am a Harlem resident, and I'm a digital strategist by trade. So right now, I've had many jobs over the years, but right now I work for Burrell Communications, which is the oldest African-American advertising agency. I'm working mainly on Toyota, but also do some work on Comcast, McDonald's, and a bunch of other brands. I've been in this space for a long time. Seeing tons of things change. Worked in digital before there was YouTube and all those other things. So I'm old. But it's fun and it's an exciting world. And, I've worked with like Oprah and I worked on Breaking Bad. And so, happy to share any experiences that will help you like be successful in your businesses or any of the endeavors that you're doing. I also run So I'm a podcaster. I have a podcast called Smart Brown Voices, so check that out if you want to learn more about business people. And so I'll do a whole bunch of stuff, so, follow me on Twitter.
And you may be old, what you said. Do you have a voice for radio? Yeah. Voice at 11:30 at night.
That's why I do the podcast there.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kersten Stevens, and I own a company called Think Sweet Media, and we manage the social media strategy for a few different major performing arts institutions, one of which is the Apollo Theater, another of which is NJPAC. And I got into this because I am, or was, or I think I still am, a jazz and gospel violinist. And social media was really just a way for me to parlay my creative talents into helping out other institutions. I have a long storied history with the Apollo Theater and performing there, and so when they reached out, I was really excited. It felt like my life had come full circle at the time, and through doing that, I started working on different projects with different clients and managing their social strategy, and so I'm just glad to be here and glad to be on the panel.
Awesome. What an eclectic audience and panelists we have here, don't you think so? Yeah, awesome. So, and I'd like to acknowledge two special people in the room. My daughter, Charity, is here. She's in the green. Hi, Charity. Hi, Charity. And also, celebrity performer Josh Johnson, who has tap dances on the trains of New York City, been in the New York Times, been an Ellen DeGeneres show, and performs around the world. My good friend Josh is taking the time to be here as well, too. Heckle me. So, welcome, Josh. You're all welcome to come and sit down if you want, no problem. It's all good. So, I would just be curious to know, this world is, next generation social media. We're in a world of noise, of confusion. Everybody's on Twitter, everybody's on Facebook, and all these platforms. And every panelist doesn't have to answer every question. It'll take too long. But I'd like to know what you've learned. Can you give? We have a lot of students here. You guys have years of experience in a variety of platforms and things you've done. Can you each tell us, you know what, Ramon? Over the 10 years, 15 years, 20 years I've been doing this, here's what I've learned, and here's my advice to the audience. I'd love to start out something general like that. What do you say? Somebody has to grab that mic.
I'll grab the mic. So personally and professionally, I'd say there are a lot of lessons you can learn, especially as new tech emerges, as new platforms emerge. And one of the biggest lessons I've learned, both for brands and personally, is that you're building a different brand on each platform you're on. You're not going to be the same person you are on LinkedIn, that you are on Facebook, you are on Twitter, Instagram, so on. And the same thing applies for brands. Context is everything, and content is not one size fits all. So if you think that you're going to have a strategy and then just sort of break down that strategy and take clips and put them everywhere and have it resonate, you're misled, because it really needs to be in the context of what's native for that platform. So for instance, if we're shooting a video for a brand, we're actually going to be on set and thinking about the vines that we're going to be creating, or the Instagram pieces of content that we're going to be creating, and the tone and the voice is going to be completely different for those platforms. So I think as new platforms emerge, you just kind of have to really feel out what is native to that platform in order for it to not become noise. You have to have it really make a connection to the people on that platform, understand the audience deeply, how they connect, and then have your content kind of go natively into that stream. So that's what we've learned. It's not just, kind of like spraying and praying. It's really being strategic about the different platforms that you're on and the type of content that you're putting on them.
And do you find, Melissa, because people are lazy? I know I'm lazy. I produce a lot of content. I forgot to say who I am. I'm a publisher of Smart Hustle Magazine, an entrepreneur, started 4 companies, sold a company. I work for Infusionsoft. I'm a writer, an author, and a lot of other things, but I'll stop there. But my point, Melissa, do you think that people are lazy? Because I think that it's hard to do it for all platforms. Do you find that's one reason why they don't do it, or is there another reason?
Yeah, I mean, that's one piece of it. They think that they're, spending a ton of money creating one piece of content, that they should be able to leverage that piece of content for every platform and sort of make the most out of it, when you should actually be spending less, making more small bets, more pieces of content that make sense to each platform. That's how you're going to get the most amount of reach.
Great. And Rex, Mike, and Kirsten, share. What have you guys learned? What's the best practice in general? You can share with us to kick us off.
Well, I think one of the things that I've learned, I've been trying to express this to my clients as of recent, is that you have to really find a unique voice on these social media platforms. Like, you can go to pretty much every Twitter handle and find the exact same tone on a lot of these platforms, and I feel like it's really extremely important, if you want to differentiate yourself, is to have a distinct voice and really try to be human. I think a lot of people are too robotic in their social media. Like, a lot of people who I've seen that really be successful out there, they've built up a human, kind of feel to what they're doing. It feels personal. It feels, that I can actually connect with that person, instead of actually I'm just talking to, the Twitter bird or something like that. So I think, like, really try to be, authentic and human with what you're trying to do in these social channels, because I think it will like resonate more. Like, I know for me, like, I don't have the biggest, social followings in the world, but, people, connect with me. Like, people know me because they've connected with me on Twitter, and they'll, it's, for me, it's like an icebreaker, people like, oh, I follow you on Twitter, and then, we'll have a deeper conversation about what they're trying to solve, so I think, like, being human is like one of the key takeaways I've learned over the years.
Does it annoy you when people use the word Oprah, Breaking Bad, in the same word, and then say, but I don't have a big social following, I'm nobody? Does it all on you? I mean, really? But to that point, what is your advice for brands? For brands that are trying to be social, and I say brands meaning companies. Some people, you have companies are building. How can they have that human voice, yet they're Toyota or they're Capital One or whoever they are? How do you blend that between, you have to have some automation, some scheduling? Any advice on how to have that human voice come out, yet we're running a company?
I would say, for brands, and I work with tons of brands, like right now I work with mainly Toyota, and one of the things is for them to really become more human is to hire a really good community manager. Like, social media is not free. You have to have a budget, and you have to put time and effort into this, and you have to be consistent. And I think that's where the laziness comes in. It's like a lot of people, they get frustrated because they don't see these instantaneous results. They're like, I'm making $1 million off my Twitter feed. I was like, well, most people don't. Like all these influencers out here who are making, millions or, a couple $1,000s off their Instagram feed, like, that's because they put in the time and effort, and they're very human with what they do. So hire a really good community manager if you're a brand, and really work with them on the voice and tone, and like have conversations instead of just putting out these very flat status updates, because people are tired of that, and people will get super bored with a lot of the stuff that brands are putting out there. And then also think like, and BuzzFeed is great at this because they make the most awesome videos. Like my goddaughter is obsessed with BuzzFeed because I look at her Facebook feed is all BuzzFeed cooking videos. And because she's actually going to, she's going to culinary school right now, so she's very much into that. So they produce content that resonates with their audience, and they have lots of different micro audiences that they've kind of segmented, into different buckets. So they have like Latino, or they'll have cooking, or like millennial, and I feel like they do it well because they've like compartmentalized, but they've targeted in right on that community that is going to share. And like every video I see from BuzzFeed has millions of views on it.
Mine doesn't have millions, everyone. Rex and Kirsten, please share your insight.
I'm not a brand person. I don't think that I follow a single brand on Twitter, and so I'm not going to be the. Nor have I ever run a.
Anybody identify with Rex?
Yeah.
Like non-brand, you just want to be like a real person? Okay, like half the
Yeah,
room.
I've never run a social media campaign for a company either. So, with that caveat, I'll kind of approach it from the personal angle. I grew up in what I call the deep Midwest, North Dakota, and I was living there in 1999, and I discovered this thing called blogging. In fact, it was called weblogging back then. It wasn't even a word yet. And there was probably about 150 people doing it at the time. And I was like, oh, I can do this. This is pretty simple. It's kind of like early days look like LiveJournal, if people remember LiveJournal. And it was a little bit of writing about your life, but it was really just pointing out interesting things on the internet. And it as people know, that became a dominant medium up into the mid-2000s probably, and has since then either, depending on your perspective, either dissipated or become everything. Like BuzzFeed might just be a big blog, or maybe it killed blogs. I'm not sure which. But and it, for me personally, it was like, this was for a kid that grew up in the middle of nowhere, I never would have met anyone. I would never have ever come to Harlem if I hadn't been someone who started talking to people on the internet. And yeah, I'm very encouraged by it. And so, I don't. There's no like big lesson there other than I think that social media, as we now call it, is really just a place of being yourself and interacting with other people, and it's not much more complex than that. And if you are yourself, you'll meet other people, and success kind of just follows in the wake of that, I believe. So.
Okay, love it. So that was for you. Social media and the internet was a connectivity.
Yes.
And I remember those days because anybody know Microsoft Front Page? Okay, so that's when I not started, but I was before that. But saving my webpage 3 times a day and uploading it via FTP because I couldn't get the publish button to work, so I'd upload it 3 times a day. That was my blog. So I know the feeling. Good. Kirsten, please.
Okay, so some of what I'm going to say is going to piggyback off of what's already been said, but I found that what I've learned is that it's very important to meet people where they are, and the institutions I work for are very concerned, rightfully so, with putting butts in seats. It's really important. But at the same time, I've been really working with them to make sure that what we say meets what people want to hear. So it's really important for me to know the audience, and to then know how the brand needs to communicate with that audience. So in the case of the Apollo Theater, we have a lot of fun with what we say and how we say it. I think the most recent tweet started with like, "You ain't ready," right? And what it was really saying was, buy tickets to the show, please. We have a really great show tonight, but the tweet was, "You ain't ready for LA Twins because they're going to be on this stage and it's going to be hot and dope and whatever the context was." But it's really about delivering content in a way that people can digest it. And the best way for them to digest it is just deliver it where they are and the way they speak, which also piggybacks off of what everyone else has said about delivering content in the space, in the platform the way it should be delivered. And also making sure that it's human, making sure that it's organic, and that's the best way for it to be, for people to resonate and engage with it.
And I think, did she say that there's a good show at the Apollo tonight? Is that what you just said? I did. You said at the Apollo, right?
You can't turn certain buttons don't turn off. When you're tweeting about something, you always know like what's going on. There is a great show, but you can go to our Twitter page. It's all there.
Gotcha. And before we go on, I just want to know, do we have any questions here? Anybody come here with questions? Because I can take all the time. We can discuss and share, no problem. But I want to know if you all have questions, because it's here, I believe, to help answer people's questions too. So, okay, so there are some questions. Good. So we'll say, I think we're supposed to end at 3:20. Someone can correct me, or 3:15. Just shout it out for me, and we'll save plenty of time. Yeah, thank you. No, yeah, okay, yeah, for the Q&A, yes, for sure. So, okay, so let's turn the channel a bit, turn the table a bit, and I'm curious this aspect of personal branding versus a professional brand. So I'm often asked many times when I give presentations on social media, Ramon, you know, I'm talking to my cousins, my cats, we're talking about birthdays and personal stuff on Facebook. But yet I'm trying to build a company. I have a brand I'm trying to build. Do I have to have one, both, separate? How do I do this? I know my advice is I only have one brand. My daughter's there, my friend's here. I don't talk about family pretty much anywhere publicly. I just don't. And my wife does. Oh boy, that's my mouth open. I'm drooling on the couch. But anyways, what do you all say? This aspect of guiding the students here, especially, you know, and others who are starting out. They want to, you know, they're used to communicating with friends, but yet they go work at BuzzFeed, you know, intern for you or work for you, whatever it is. What do they do? So how do you handle that? You know, do you communicate with your niece on Facebook, or is it all professional and just what you're doing? Not saying not have fun, by the way, but how do you blend those worlds? Can you all, and all don't have to if you don't have anything, but whoever can help answer that, how do you do that?
I actually want to say that the more I've been working for brands and companies, the less I've been doing social media for myself, as an artist and personally. So, I mean, I think my Instagram, the last post was 5 weeks ago, and I know it's because I was on the beach. And so that was the last time I literally had time or made time to tweet for myself, because I'm constantly, if I have an extra second, it's, okay, what's going on here? Let me check this, let me check that. And so I would say that the more, as a social strategist, the more I do it for professionally, the less I'm doing it professionally. And when I do have the opportunity to do so professionally, it is very much family-based. You know, this is where I am, this is what I'm doing. That hasn't changed, but certainly the frequency has.
Okay, so maybe I can talk about family. I don't know, maybe I'm boring. Only thing I do is on Instagram, every Saturday morning, 3 pancakes, 5 pieces of bacon, 2 glasses of cold milk, 2 eggs, cheese, right? Every Saturday. And Aunt Jemima syrup. Go ahead.
Well, that sounds, you know, delicious. Breakfast all day. But so I'm the complete opposite, but I feel like the more I do social for brands, the more platforms I am trying to play around with. Because I feel like for me, it's about like kind of using the social media platforms as experimentation, because then I'm actually taking what I've learned from what I'm doing for myself on those social platforms back to the brands, because it actually helps me develop different strategies. Because I feel like you have to kind of get to know like what's the actual language of each one of these platforms, because they're all very different and they have their very different nuances. Like, you know, everyone's trying to figure out Snapchat. And what does that mean for your brand, and how do you actually market there? And a lot of people haven't figured it out. I haven't figured it out.
You haven't figured it out.
But you have to spend time in these places, and you kind of have to, you know, get a feel for like what works here. Like, you know, like I know, like for me, when I'm looking for like to hire people, I'm looking for people who are, you know, pretty much like ninjas on some of these platforms, and can put together or actually know how to build an audience and talk to people on these platforms, because again, they're all very different and they have their different like nuances. So I feel like it's you know, like for me with my own personal brand, you know, I use these places to kind of like you know, share the insights that I'm learning from with all of these different brands, because you know, I'm fortunate to have been able to work with these people, and then I'm gaining a lot of insights and being able to like translate it back, because then like how do you like translate it down for like people who have small businesses, because they want to be able to use these platforms too and not spend like $1 million on it, because they just don't have those type of budgets.
Anybody else? Yeah, all panels don't have.
I think there's something interesting that happened, like, I don't know when exactly, the last few years, where it seemed like each of these platforms did exist as a place where you knew what your audience was. And Facebook was probably always the exception. Facebook was always like that kid you went to high school with or whatever. It was everyone potentially. But when you said something on Twitter, you had an idea about who that audience was, and if you put a picture on Instagram, you had an idea of that. Nowadays, I feel like everything's becoming more and more like Facebook, where I'll run into someone who I don't think who I haven't seen for years, and I don't think has any connection to me, and then starts talking about my Instagram feed, and which just throws me off and makes me think, what do they think of me? I'm trying to imagine them looking through my feed and thinking about it. Twitter too, like I have young nieces who I recently discovered follow my Twitter feed, and now make me go, oh no, like I don't, can I block them? I don't, that's what I'm like. I must have a really weird view of what my life is like. And so I don't know how I feel about that. I definitely don't know how it affects brands who are, I think, struggling to create platform-specific content when people are living in these spaces between private, public that are breaking down.
I mean, I agree with Mike. I feel like it's a great grounds for experimentation on who you are on that platform and what you stand for. Again, like my Instagram is dedicated just to food, and like that's who I am on Instagram. Like I'm a foodie, and I'm not the same person that I am on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, I'm sharing like BuzzFeed news and business stories and things that are going to interest that audience. So I mean, I'm not like rigid, but I am carefully constructing who I am on each platform, just because I understand the language of what is expected on that platform, and how I want the world to perceive me on those platforms. So like when you think about people that are looking at me on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, they're going to get this 360 view of who I am, but it can be different and it can show different parts of who I am. And I think that can apply to brands in a very similar way. A brand doesn't have to be the same, like it can have a slightly different tone on Instagram and on Facebook than it does on Pinterest, because Pinterest is aspirational, while Facebook is based on identity and Twitter is based on real time and what you should be talking about in real time. So I mean, I think it's very much like just being careful about what you're saying and how you're portraying yourself on different platforms, but altogether it'll create the story of who you are as a person or as a brand.
Right, awesome. And I want to acknowledge Darnell being here from Yale, who I'm very jealous of being in Business Week as a fashionably dressed man. I try to email the same reporter, take a picture of me too. They don't take it, Darnell. It's only you. So, but welcome. Thanks for being here today as well. So I have a lot of questions I can ask, but since people did raise their hands and they have questions, I'd love to take them. And I ask that if you have a comment or suggestion or disagreement, we don't need to hear that today. That's for your church or mosque or synagogue. You can do that there. Here we just want one quick, to-the-point question. No emotional issues, not a story about happening with your grandmother, just to the question. So, please, and I'll repeat it. Go here, we'll try to get everybody real quick, please.
So Vincenzo and I are here, we're streaming on Periscope, Meerkat. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts about, you talk about having a different voice across various platforms. These ones are very nascent and still emerging. I'd love to hear your take on live mobile video streaming.
And maybe we'll have two panelists answer, unless everybody wants to have a comment, but somebody grab the mic, two people can. And I know, yeah, please.
So I just recently used it for like 2 different conferences, and I think it's great because again, like all the web traffic is really going to be video focused over the next couple of years. So I'm really just excited to see like how, you know, people start to use Periscope and mention and everything else out there. I think it's great for just getting, again, like that organic engagement, like that real time, you know, right there. Like I used it to stream a Wale concert for one of my clients a week ago. And so we got tons of engagement off of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think live streaming, Periscope, Meerkat, whoever wins that war, it's going to be the future, and in so many different ways. I mean, for one, like just the way that it will change news, and the way that, you know, Twitter has changed news, but the ability to actually see what's happening in real time, and making kind of citizen journalists. I think that's huge. I think for brands to have people be able to experience like live cooking shows or seeing what they're seeing through a brand's eyes definitely humanizes them in a different way. And also just like personally, when I use Periscope or Meerkat, I'm at a concert and I see people that are in India like connecting with me. I mean, it's incredible. It's also really amazing the way that you can engage with people on it. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like definitely mobile streaming is the future. I'm really interested to see how risk averse brands will be to it. Just because it does kind of invite. It's user generated, right? So, I mean, there will be an aversion at first, but, you know, there will be that one very brave brand, and GE uses it all the time, and they're really great with it. And, you know, brands are catching on. So I definitely think it's part of the future.
And check out the Saint Germain did a really cool campaign where they had they did like a live commercial throughout the day with a model. And so like people were able to kind of direct what she was doing in the video. So it's really good if you check that one out.
And I would say if you're not comfortable with live stream, Periscope, and other tools, it's okay to try traditional video. You know, shoot a video and just practice on that. I've done video like that. Next question, I think maybe.
It's 2-part. 1, what are the characteristics of some of these platforms? And then 2, if you're a small operation, how do you time manage yourself so that you can go on all of these platforms?
And not that you have to run on the platforms, that's the audience. But the question was, what are the characteristics of the variety of platforms, and how do you manage your time to go on the platforms. So my quick advice already to that was, and it's a common question, dear small business owners, students, professionals, you do not have, in my opinion, the panel could say, Ramon, you're wrong, but I don't think you have to be on all platforms. Try 2 or test a few and then go what's for you. I mean, for me, it's Facebook and Twitter. I just can't do all 79 platforms. So that's what I do. But what do y'all say?
I'll be the first again. So, I mean, I think it kind of just like taking a step back, you have to really think about what's your why. Like, why are you doing what you're doing and who are you trying to reach? And also, like, what's going to be the most benefit to your consumers? What are you talking about? How are you going to reach and impact their lives and move them? And I think once you figure that out, then you can evaluate the different platforms you should be on. In terms of like going into every single platform, like they all have very unique characteristics of what does well and who you can connect with in a meaningful way. And I could spend hours going into that, but I think it's really like to figure out what's right for you, you have to really go deep and not think about like I'm selling this product or I want people, like the end result. Like the end result is going to be a byproduct of the way that you frame what you're talking about and how you connect to people. So if you're a small business owner of a clothing line and that, you create winter gear and that jacket will enable someone to climb Mount Everest and keep warm. You don't want to just talk about that. You want to talk about the journey, what someone goes through climbing Everest. And that's how you're going to emotionally connect to people. And then everything else will be a byproduct of that. And then from there, you can evaluate where is that story best told? Is it on an app like Stellar? Is it on Instagram? What's visual? And that's how I would approach it.
And just remind you, those who are online and tweeting and things, use the hashtag, hashtag for Harlem. I think our handles are not there. Do that. We will all follow and retweet afterwards. We're there too. Yeah, please.
My question is kind of, out there. When Instagram came out, Twitter came out, Facebook, then later LinkedIn, I joined a lot of these sites, but I don't really know how to use them. And then I don't know what's appropriate, like what's appropriate to say on different sites, because are you responding on Twitter to someone else's shows, or even my son dropped me from Instagram because he said I was saying.
That's right. The question was, I just started on the internet,
Right.
and there's a lot of platforms, and I'm not sure how to start. That's the question.
Right.
I don't know, can I say this on LinkedIn? Can I say this on Twitter? So that's a very big question for panels. Let's see if in 10 seconds we can help give her some advice. And I'll start out if you want to give you all time to think on this. But I would say 4 acronyms I share with people. FREA. Frequency, relevancy, engagement, analytics. And it may not answer the question directly, but if you think, how many of you have kissed before? Anything, anyone, anytime, any place. Anybody ever kissed? Okay, 3 people in the room have kissed before. The point is, the frequency is about how much do you kiss. If you kiss too much, people will think you're a freak. If you kiss too little, they'll think you're not loved. So frequency. Because out of sight, out of mind. Relevancy is important. You have to kiss the right person. So be relevant to your audience, as you kind of talked about. Your name is Melissa. Yes. And then engagement, it needs to be engaging. It needs to be interesting. And then the analytics measure what you're doing to make sure that the results are there. So that's my quick input, but any fast input that leads.
Marriage advice or what?
You know what? Hey, thank you. It works whatever you want to use it for.
I actually wanted to ask you, which out of all the ones that you listed, which one do you think you personally like the best?
Great question.
LinkedIn. So I would focus there and ignore the rest, because you don't have to do all of them. You just have to do the one that matters most to you. Otherwise, you'll be doing the others, but it won't be organic. And I would say, and this is really basic, unfortunately, but sometimes it is the easiest. The most obvious thing is sometimes the best thing to do. Go onto LinkedIn and go to their help page. A lot of the networks just have how-tos, how to post on Facebook. And sometimes it's not everything, but sometimes it's just the nuts and bolts that you need to make you comfortable in the space, right? And so I would just focus there.
Great, please.
This is for BuzzFeed. With the content that you produce, how do you monetize the content that you produce, especially the videos on Facebook? How do you take the amount of followers or the shares or the likes? How do you turn that into profit?
So his question was, how can I get shares in BuzzFeed and become a billionaire? That was the no, his question is, how do you monetize? The bottom line is monetization. For BuzzFeed, or give overall guidance. How can one monetize content, if I may extend the
Right,
question?
right. So a lot of what you're probably seeing is the short form videos on Facebook, right? And a lot of what we're doing right now is like it's testing and learning, right? It's testing what's working, what's getting views, and then eventually we use that to monetize. So if we see that short form, cooking videos from 15 to 30 seconds are doing really well, we're going to start doing that for brands as well. But, the beauty of having an editorial team that's producing massive amounts of content is that you have the ability to test and learn. So, I mean, right now we are starting on short form content. Facebook's kind of rigid with their rules. So you can't exactly, if you have an editorial page where you're posting recipe videos, you can't just stick a sponsored one in there. They're very, very strict about that. So we have to build out our own partner page where we can then post that video and then seed it out on Facebook and do it that way. So it is, the editorial pages are more for testing and learning, and then that's how we kind of apply that. So it's a mix of art and science. It's okay, this is working, this is the data we're getting back from it. These are the types of videos that are performing thematically, length, square videos versus much bigger videos, and then applying that to brands. I hopefully that answered your question.
And we have 5 minutes. I will end in 3 because I love being early and we want to be invited back. A book I could recommend also is by Gary Vaynerchuk, Jab, 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 Right Hook, which is a great book. It's a little dated now, but it talks about some of the individual platforms and how to use them. We'll have time for probably about 3 more very quick questions and very fast answers. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Do you find it beneficial or does it have a bad effect if you join a brand new social media site? Can that be a negative thing for your image, or is it just kind of indifferent?
It's a great question and a very nice sweater. Please.
Well, no, I think it's okay because I feel like there's a new social platform popping up every minute, so I think it's good to kind of go test the waters and experiment with some of the new things that are coming out there, just to see if it's the right platform for you or your brand or whatever. But I think it's I think a lot of it's good to experiment and see what's new and what's different about these new and emerging platforms.
I try to sign up for everything immediately so I can reserve my username. And with the name Rex, it's not so hard, but sometimes hard. But if you get in the first 200 people, you can usually get it. And so that's why I recommend it, so you can get your favorite username, even if you never use the service again.
And I would go back to the question that Kersten asked this young lady here. I would ask why. Because not contrarian per se, but I'd say that just to test out and have fun, go for it, for sure. But I would think for business owners, you can get digital whiplash by trying to be on every platform. In my opinion, there's no need, only because I'm a technologist, but I'm a laggard at heart. So I'm old school. I was on Facebook only yesterday. So, trust me. Good question.
In starting, you don't start a new one, but on these social media platforms, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, wherever, how do you build an audience, a bigger audience than what you already have? What would you think is interesting? And if I may, I'm so sorry, but I would love to hear your reply. Only because I'm an inspirational entertainer and I perform all the time, and you're in the Apollo
He wouldn't say no to you, Mike. Mike, go ahead. You got 2 minutes. Mike, go ahead, and then Kirsten, go ahead. Go ahead, Mike. He wasn't dissing you, Mike. He was just...
Oh, no, it's all good.
Okay.
So the way that I feel, the way I found that is helpful to grow your following is to mimic or find other people who are very similar to you and look and see who's following them and then try to kind of build a rapport with that audience. It's worked for me. I've been able to triple my Twitter following by doing that. And then also following relevant conversations and hashtags and adding value to that conversation. That's where if you do that well, people will follow you because they're in that conversation. So provide value and then find other people to kind of mimic and use them as a model for what you're trying to do.
I like your answer better than mine, but I'm still going to give you my answer. So specifically speaking about the Apollo, we've really had success simply by leveraging the opportunities that are afforded to that particular brand. And by saying that, I mean Justin Bieber being at the theater and just making sure we're in position to live tweet and join the conversation and respond just like all the other screaming 15-year-old girls are responding, and just be those people. D'Angelo, the same thing. And I'm talking specifically on for events that we saw huge increases in our followership. Followership isn't typically, not even my personal, but the brand's focus. It's usually more engagement. It's all about the engagement numbers for us. But as far as when we've seen those moments, it's really been when we've positioned ourselves for that increase. So D'Angelo's one, Bieber was another, Pitbull was another. And as in, if Pitbull's there, say we're not live tweeting, right? Say Pitbull's performing and we're not live tweeting the show. Just leveraging the user-generated content from that night is a way that we've increased. So it's on Instagram specifically, following all the people who posted pictures, not following them, I mean following what they're posting, and then liking those pictures and then choosing 1 or 2 or 3 to just simply repost is just a really quick, easy tactic to then engage with a user and then start that relationship. And they're very, I would say they're maybe like, it's either 60% or maybe 40%, they're likely to follow. Just like that, just because we're just engaging and leveraging that moment.
Great. Real quick.
And I would just look up the terminology growth hacking, and you can learn a lot from there.
And you can listen to Ramon Ray too. So we only have time, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen. So what we're going to do, we got time only for one more question, which is going to come there. You can follow the conversation online. You can contact us afterwards. You can all find us. We're very easy to identify. And don't forget, Josh Johnson, just raise your hand high. Celebrity, inspirational tap dancer, and speaker. You have to read his story. Follow him. An amazing story covered in New York Times and other places. And check this gentleman out. Really, he'll blow your mind. Please, question, and then one panelist answer, and then we must close.
Hi, actually, this is for Melissa. I use my Instagram for food also. My question is, when I shoot my stage still life, is it detrimental if I were to mix that with, say, like a donut that I shoot on the street somewhere?
No, I mean, my aesthetic on Instagram kind of varies from like something like Gramercy Tavern, where I'm like staging it, to a piece of like candy that I'm eating. I mean, it's across the board, and I'll choose my hashtag strategically, so I'm hitting like a wide audience. I don't need like people to follow me that are just going to really nice restaurants. I want people like across the board that are interested in New York City food in general. So I don't think so, unless you have a very, very specific like audience that you're trying to hit. It shouldn't be detrimental at all.
Great. So with that, if you look up Josh Johnson Tap Dancer, because somebody didn't get it, Josh Johnson Tap Dancer, and I apologize. Clayton is big, huge dude. He will throw me out, but I must end the session now. But we'll be available. I apologize to you. Please forgive me, but we must close this session right now. Thank you all very much, and have a beautiful day.